Hi everyone, I'm Graham Richardson-Locke, FESPA's Technical Manager, and welcome to our sixth FESPA Coffee Break. Any of you that have joined us before will now know that I'm FESPA's Technical Manager. However, if this is the first time you've joined, I'd just like to let you know that I've spent the last 35 years working in screen and large format digital printing. I joined the industry as a trainee screen printer, and my career has progressed through a number of roles in management and directorships in point of sale, textile, and military electronics before I joined FESPA in my current role. I'm committed to the value of professional networking and know that my skills have greatly been enhanced by attending a great number of events and seminars that have been supported by FESPA. And I think it's worth saying that, as an international specialty print trade federation, we continue to focus our efforts on knowledge sharing and community building within the screen and wide format digital print landscape. And since FESPA's foundation 58 years ago, its purpose has been to help businesses using specialty printing to advance and make the best use of the latest technology. We aim to keep today's session to around 45 minutes, as we understand that your time is limited as you deal with the business of rebuilding and kicking off the year. We hope you'll benefit from your participation and that you'll find some useful tips to build on that will support you in a disruptive and challenging marketplace. So as we consider today's session, we're fortunate to be joined by Matthew Parker, who brings a wealth of experience in sales training aimed at printers. And as a former print buyer, Matthew is well placed and very experienced in the do's and don'ts that lead to sales or rejections. We're going to discuss the current situation and offer strategies to build your pipeline by understanding the new paradigm. I'm now going to share the topic slide, which has already been shared. Thank you, Kelly. So in today's coffee break, we're going to look at sales, how to reframe our sales approach as we come through the COVID-19 pandemic. Matthew from Profitable Print Relationships steps in to help us with a reboot. Getting it right has never been more important when our customers have suffered and budgets are under scrutiny. So I think I didn't notice whether we've just shared the Matthew's details and mine, but
I did. Don't worry.
Okay, great. So at the end of the session, we'll share this information again so that you know where to reach us. So without further ado, I'm very pleased to welcome Matthew Parker, print champion from Profitable Print Relationships. Please introduce yourself, Matthew, so that we can understand a bit more about your background.
Well, thank you, Graham. It's great to be here. Good morning to everyone. It's lovely to see so many happy, smiley faces here on the internet. I studied as an archaeologist, so from there it was a natural step into the printing industry, and I found I loved buying print and had a career of many years buying print. And my final job was heading up all the print buying at Future Publishing. So I came on board to buy all the gifts for the magazines, all the books, the packaging, the CDs, the needlecraft kits, and then they gave me all of print to manage. So I had quite a few £1 million worth of print. And as you can imagine, I had a lot of printing companies for whom I was a big target. In fact, I believe that over my time at Future, I was probably approached around about 1,400 different printing companies. So that's a big bit of my life I can't get back. And then I wanted to leave Future and to start up my own business. And what I thought I was going to do, and I still do sometimes, is help companies with their print buying strategies, audit what they were doing, look at what their teams were buying, help them become more efficient, help them prevent waste, help them make sure they have the right suppliers. But what happened was the phone started ringing and my old suppliers were getting in contact with me. They were going, Matthew, we're tough. So can you come in and tell us how to deal with people like you? And that's how Profitable Print Relationships was born. I'm now the gamekeeper turned poacher, sitting on the other side of the fence from printing companies, telling them what it's like to be sold to by them. And I do this through a number of different ways, through events like this and through one-to-one mentoring and training sessions as well. But everything's based around the customer experience element and my experience as a buyer directly in the printing industry.
Great, thank you, Matthew. That's a very good snapshot of where you're from. Okay, so before we get into the questions, I'm just going to ask you to take a minute to complete the poll that I'm going to share. Just gives us an idea of the businesses that you're in within our attendees today. So if you could please just complete that, that'd be really helpful. Thank you. This always feels like the longest minute. You think that's half a minute. So I'm going to leave the poll open just for a few more minutes, just for the last attendees to register their what sector they're from. Most of us have completed it already.
Are you going to give them a great countdown to the time you take the question off the board, Graham?
2, 1, done. Okay, so that is it completed. Thank you everyone for letting us know. So just looking at the industry sectors that we have in our audience today, we've got 80% involved in digital printing, of which 55% are expressing wide format. And we've got a decent mix of 30% screen printers, some textile printers, signage companies, and some industrial. So thank you very much. It helps us to know who's in the room with us, as we can't actually see you personally. Okay, so right, I think without further delay, let's start with our first question for Matthew. So Matthew, what first question I wanted to ask you was, what are the key changes for selling successfully during the pandemic? Perhaps you can give us your insight.
Okay, well, I like to do things in threes. So I've got 3 answers to this question, or 3 changes that I'd like to cover. And I think the first thing is we probably have to give ourselves permission to sell in a way that we haven't had to do before. So I've talked to a lot of people who feel that given what everyone is undergoing at the moment, and it's horrible what so many businesses are suffering at the moment, but given what everyone is undergoing at the moment, people feel really uncomfortable selling. And I totally get that, because it's a different world out there. You're trying to get people to spend money with you when they're busy running around trying to reshape their businesses, pivot, deal with whatever's next around the corner, which changes on a weekly, if not daily basis. So I get that it must feel, sometimes wrong to sell to people. You may feel guilty about selling to people, but I think we have to remember that despite everything that's happening around us, business goes on. And in many cases, we can help our clients and our customers and our prospects to actually create better business through the services and products that we are providing them with. And we also need to remember that we're responsible for the turnover and the profitability of our own companies. And if we don't go out and sell, then we're not only putting our own livelihoods at risk, but also the livelihoods of all of our colleagues and potentially owners at those companies. So it's okay to sell despite what's going on at the moment. And I think that's the first thing I'd say. What do you think about that, Graham?
I agree. I think when you know that people, not feeling like you're being a nuisance to people is the thing to get over. I think having a clear sense of where your product will benefit people is the key, I suppose. And I agree. I think that empathy is, of course, very important, and I'd quite like you to talk a little about that, if you would.
Yeah, sure. And I think empathy is the second key change. Quite often until now, lots of salespeople have kind of gone in there quite aggressively because that's the nature of many salespeople. But I think now we do have to accept the background. We do have to accept that businesses are hurting, and businesses are listening to people who are sympathizing with them. I mean, that's my experience. And I do feel that sometimes people are going in there full on. And if I get another email that comes in going, it's business as normal, we're open to help you, you place your orders now. My answer to that is just, so what? If people go, look, I know you're hurting at the moment. I know you've probably got less budget at the moment. How are you doing? First of all, let's find out, both on a business level and a personal level. If you know the person well, find out how things are for them, but then go in and talk to them. And this is the third point really about how you can help them. Then you've got a much better chance of making the sale and having a worthwhile sales conversation and feeling okay about selling at the end of the day. So we go in there, we understand they're hurting, and we're actually thinking about what they're having to do to their business at the moment and how we can help them do that. And I think some of the things that we may cover later on in the conversation is how do we help businesses in these times? We all know that at the beginning of the pandemic, so many businesses needed social distancing and signage and all those elements that we've brought in. But how do we help people now build and grow in this very different landscape? And the change that we have isn't going to go away. We're not going to go back to normal anytime soon. We're not ever going to go back to the normal that we had. I was speaking to courier companies who have said that they've evolved 5 years in 6 months. The pace of change and the way that customers are looking at things will be very different from when this all started.
And I think it's about arguing for the value of the printed product, isn't it? It's in many respects, we're in a very complex landscape of digital marketing, but the physical touch point of print is its sort of unique value, whether that's signage in, COVID safe management, or whether it's, I was talking to a friend of mine earlier who works for a company that make veneered doors for construction, and they are in the habit of sending out lots and lots of samples of pieces of wood that are all very expensive, and he's putting a program together to replace that with highly accurate printed simulations of those materials. And we were just talking about the fact that the perception of the cost of that print job initially might be quite high, but actually the overall value in the savings in terms of postage, weight, physical materials for the sampling of their wood products actually creates enormous benefit. So I think that's a good part of the process, isn't it, for us in our different sectors to be really considering why our product is useful.
And I think it's also useful to remember the cost of digital, both environmentally, but also actually in pounds and pence and euros and dollars at the moment. If people are coming in and going, they want to use SEO rather than, or ad clicks rather than the printed item, first of all, the cost of that has shot up hugely. You want to buy popular keywords now, per click, it's a frightening amount of money. In some areas it can be £8 per click. And we also have to remember the value of the print, the tactile, the fact that so many people engage on a touch basis, and that print communicates to them in a way that digital just can't. So, whether that is signage with all its, the way you can fill all the widgets, whether it's a piece of print that comes to your door, some packaging, whether it's a piece of clothing, all these things that we touch is such a different way of feeling a message coming through, and for that message lasting, compared to so many of the digital elements that some people are putting forward.
Yeah, which arguably has immediacy, but not lasting durability. Okay,
Sometimes when I get an email, it has the immediacy of making me press a delete button, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Whereas I'm getting lovely print through the door.
If it says we're the cheapest, we can do it on time at decent quality.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to our second question, because we're now kind of thinking about customers. So the question I would like to ask you is, how do we get hold of customers when they're working from home?
Yeah, because the landscape has changed totally. And I think, again, for those of you who are thinking about normality in a few months' time, actually home working is here to stay. So I've got a friend who works in a major building society, and they've got a hub near down the road from us where they've got 5 buildings, and they've mothballed 3 of those buildings, not just for the pandemic, but permanently, because they see home working becoming such a strong feature. And for sure, it's not for everyone. And there are disadvantages as well as advantages, but many of their staff like doing it. They've now converted their garage and they're going, hurrah, I don't have to spend an hour or so commuting each way every day. I'd far sooner be working at home. And people have got round the idea of we have to be face-to-face for team meetings. You know, Zoom and Teams has taken all that over. So we should be aware that in this conversation, this isn't just for the next few months. This is forever for many teams. One of the best ways I'm seeing of getting hold of people at the moment is actually through social media. And I use social media one-to-one messaging a lot in my sales efforts.
Would that be LinkedIn as your first weapon of choice in your
Yes,
activity, and how do you feel?
very much. Yeah, very much. LinkedIn is number one by a long way because it's accepted as a business platform. But I do also use Facebook Messenger. I have used Instagram on occasion. I use Twitter. All of those work as one-to-one messaging. And if I can't get hold of someone on the phone or the email, even before the pandemic, I was using social media messaging as another way and getting a very good response rate from that. Even though they know that it's me, I'm coming through them for a business point of view, I'm getting a very good hit rate and engagement when I'm using those channels. And I think particularly at the moment, sometimes people are finding more time for social media during work for those messages. They're happier to engage with LinkedIn. Sadly, some people are on furlough or they're not working the hours that they were. And therefore, or they're just not traveling to engage. So for me, that's really powerful.
I think when we were speaking before, I was saying about after I got home from having knee surgery and I was lying in my bed and I was thinking I was feeling guilty that I wasn't working, but I wasn't able to drive and things. So I went through LinkedIn to find the CEO of a large print buying group, and yeah, I think sometimes I sent him a very cheeky message from my bed, and amazingly,
won the client, didn't you?
Yeah, I won a client. I got past all the usual kind of filtering processes that were preventing me from getting access, and actually we had a decent conversation that led to us being onboarded as a supplier. So I think sometimes the kind of unusual approach can be, absolutely worth considering.
Definitely.
I suppose
and people, it does cut through the gatekeepers. It's always worked for me, social media, to start up those dialogues. Yeah. It's not going to work for everyone, but it has a much higher hit rate than you might think. The other one I'm doing. Sorry, go on.
Well, I was just thinking about with social media, with Instagram. Again, if we're part of a very visual industry, but yes. I've looked at quite a lot of Instagramming from our, people across specialty print, and I've seen a real mix of people showing amazing projects, really, really beautiful finished work. And then I've seen people posting pictures of an inkjet printer or a scruffy looking workshop. Do you have any views on how people should consider tackling Instagram?
So with Instagram, always keep your client in mind and always keep the environment in mind as well. So Instagram is highly visual and people are coming on that for great visuals. They're not coming on it for pictures of presses. So I would always, to me, Instagram is a place where you put your projects on and you show people great results of what you've been doing, as long as your clients are happy for you to do that. I would say that, whether you're doing that on Instagram or on LinkedIn, I'd always say, what does a customer want to read? Hint, it's not about your marvelous inkjet press or, what you can do technically. Is actually about how you can help their business. And that's what you need to focus on. But I think we also need to recognize that posting on Instagram and posting on LinkedIn are very good ways for building up a wider audience. But if you're looking at specifically getting hold of individual people, then the way to do that is through the messaging element of those programs, of those platforms, not just by putting posts up there. The posts will help, and they'll get an idea of whom you are and the type of things that you're saying, and you can create a really good personal brand, company brand from that, one that helps customers rather than just sells print. But use the messaging. That's where people are not using it enough, in my opinion, at the moment. We see a lot of great content out there. We see a lot of not so great content out there as well. But the one-to-one element is a really powerful way of doing it. So I'd say that's the key bit. But if you're going to message on Instagram, you need to have a nice feed to back that up as well, because people want to know who you are. And it's the same for any platform.
And a call to action. I think sometimes it's nice to share the project, but I think the call to action, I believe, not overselling in the visual, but in the hashtagging, the mentions, the copy beneath that. Having a clear call to action is worthwhile, but not over.
Definitely. I mean, whatever you do, I always recommend having a call to action, whether it's a sales one-to-one message or a content post. If it's in content, I always encourage people to download my free ebook, because then I can contact them again with email later on. But if it's in a one-to-one message, then I want from that message to have a call to action. Can we have a phone call? Can we have a meeting? Can I send you some samples? That sort of thing. I'm just going to pick up on a message in the chat here from Ileana, who said, so you recommend a content post, but better a personalized message. And I recommend both. Let's remember that the content post is one to many. So this is where we're building our brand and for people to come out against us. The personalized message is to actually start or continue a dialogue with someone that you want to have that one-to-one dialogue with. So it may just be reaching out to them in the first place, and it's the first point of making that one-to-one dialogue, at which point they may be engaged with you already. So it's not the same as doing a cold call, but I also use it as a way to mix up my communication. So if there's someone I know well, there's someone who I used to have as a client, and if I need to get hold of them, if I rang them, they'd never answer. If I emailed them, I'd get an answer about a week later, by which time it's probably too late. If I messaged him on Twitter, he was addicted to Twitter. So if I messaged him on Twitter, I would get an answer within 15 minutes guaranteed. Either that or was in a really complicated meeting. So it's a great, it's a great way to start those dialogues and to use it to mix your communication up, because people have their guard down on that. We're used to deleting emails. We're used to putting the voicemail on or knowing what to say to get people off the phone. We're not so used to dealing with the personal message. So therefore, we're more likely to get our guard down. And that brings me to another channel that I use, which is texting. And I'm very happy to drop people, when I know them, a text or a WhatsApp to say, how you doing? Or I haven't heard from you recently. In fact, I did that just this morning to try and get hold of somebody who wasn't answering their phone. So I just dropped them a text, and I'm pretty sure they'll get back to me at that point. But again, it's something called pattern interrupt, and it's getting less of a pattern interrupt now because we're more used to having texts. But a lot of people, certainly over in the UK and Europe, aren't used to using texting as a way of getting hold of people. So it's unusual, and some people are horrified at the idea that I promote using this. But actually, for me,
feels too personal. Is that the?
I think almost because it is still seen as a very personal way of communicating. It's almost the opposite of what you're saying, Graham. So you're breaking into what's used traditionally for your friends and family circle, and suddenly I'm coming in there as a business person, sending a text to someone's phone, but I think it's absolutely fine. I've never had complaints from anyone that's I've known very impersonal. If I'm suddenly sending out a kind of a mass market text message to lots of people, then that's a very different situation.
Copying and pasting is
a personal. Hey, it's Matthew here. Yeah, hi Graham, it's Matthew here, and it's just another way of doing one-to-one. So it's a good way. And the other thing that I like to do is I like to use print. Let's remember, we're all evangelists of print. Let's send a card or a piece of direct mail. Some of the best direct mail I've had has been from wide format printers, where they've sent me oversized pieces of mail. And yes, it costs a bit more, but I still remember the beautiful folder that I got from a local printer who just invested in a wide format printer and went, I can go really oversized now. So I'm going to send a piece of oversized post. And he sent that to me, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, and it still sticks in my mind as a lovely piece of print. So we can get really creative here. Now, of course, the issue is that everyone's working at home and we don't usually have their home addresses. But if you drop an email or a text or a social media message and say, so, hey, I'd just like to drop a little present in the post to you. You know, I've got a bar, it's hard times. I've got a bar of chocolate if you'd like, you know, and I'd love to pop it in the post to you. Or I've got some fascinating print samples I think you'd like to have a look at. But yeah, I'm shallow. I'm going to react. I'm more likely to react to the chocolate and the print samples. But,
well, I was going to say both would be the way to pique my interest.
Well, it's almost, I'd send me the chocolate and then follow up with, and now can I send you some print samples, or do that? But it's a way of saying, you know, is there an address which is guaranteed to get hold of you? I want the chocolate. I'm going to tell you at this point. And within the GDPR rules, so I get a lot of pushback on this, but within GDPR rules, certainly in the UK, we can then use legitimate interest to send direct mail. So the last thing I'm suggesting is that you send a prospect, you know, 5 pieces of mail a week that's pouring through their letterbox, particularly when my postman had COVID. So it all came through in a kind of like a week's worth of post came through in a single delivery. So the poor guy was struggling, isn't it, to get a bigger van. But send the odd piece of post, just a card saying, how are you? Or here's a lovely print sample I thought you'd like to see, as a way of keeping in touch with people, and they'll remember it, because it goes back to the point that you were making earlier, that print has that value that digital can't replicate. People can feel the print, it'll stay with them. They might show it around, you know, I show my daughter, if I get a nice print sample, I show it to my daughter. It's a talking point for the family. I know I'm a bit sad and print geeky at times, but
yeah, I think you're in very good company, Matthew.
So I do think there's a I do think there's a way of using this in the right way to connect with people.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Let's move on to our third question, which really is about whether you think we're going to see new customers as a result of COVID. So, you know, new applications, new requirements, and how we deal with that.
Absolutely, I do. Yes. Just before I answer that, I've just seen one message coming through saying my video and sound quality isn't good. So I'm just going to switch to another Wi-Fi network for a moment. So you may lose me for just a moment. I'm just going to see if that improves things. Right. Hopefully I'm still here.
You are still here.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
okay.
You've sounded like a Dalek very briefly on the odd sentence, but yeah, that does immediately seem better, actually.
Fantastic. Okay, I have 2 problems here. One, I have homeschooling going on with live streamed lessons. And secondly, I live in Wiltshire and the internet infrastructure here is run by hamsters on wheels. So if they get a bit tired around lunchtime, it all gets a bit slow. So hopefully that works better for everyone. And apologies if I haven't been coming over as clearly as I'd have liked. So are we going to see new print customers as a result of COVID? Absolutely. Because there's so many people and businesses out there that have suddenly needed print who didn't need print before. So it goes back to, sadly, social distancing, signage, safety. Yeah, but suddenly there's so many businesses that have had to get this in order to manage their customers, to stay legal, for the police to be happy with them, to carry on trading. Yeah, around here, they really have been taking an interest with a number of businesses who haven't done the right thing, and certain businesses have now stopped trading or have vastly improved their signage. Now, that signage, I think many people saw it as a one-trick opportunity, but at a one chance, but it's not. I think it's going to carry on, because most of what we produce has a lifespan. What we produce often has a good lifespan, but when it's in a heavy duty environment, it needs to be replaced. And secondly, I think we're going to see social distancing signage and safety products as a new way in retail to actually manage your customer flow, not just from a safety point of view, but from managing people around retail environments where they're going to see new products, and also to highlight your latest products and offers. So as we get used to, it's been indicated by the government, social distancing is going to be here for a good time. So for that reason, we might as well make the most of it and actually advertise on there as well. So that's been our way into many businesses. And they've then we've then got opportunity to say, well, there's so many other things you could be doing with your signage. Why aren't your staff advertising things with the latest t-shirts or things that are going on? But we have an opportunity to build that relationship, because they're now talking to you, not having realized that they needed to before. And now we have that opportunity to change their businesses. So I think we've got big opportunities in e-commerce and in takeaways and deliveries as a starter, and also in the event industry, which might sound slightly strange. But I'm going to jump and mix this in with question 5, if that's all right, Graham, because I'm aware of time as well, and I don't want to encroach on people's time.
So these are great. Come back to question 4.
You will come back to question 4 as well. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten it.
Okay. Cool.
But I think so question 5 was going to be all about the key market opportunities. And I think there are some great opportunities here. So the first is e-commerce, because so many people now, the amount of stuff that we get being delivered by being home delivered now is up hugely on what it was before. And I always talk about my friend Nick, who's an artisan chocolatier at this point, but he's opened up his website. He's from having had a stall where he sells his chocolate and local shops. He's opened up his website. He's seen the opportunities for e-commerce. He now sends out packages. It's a luxury brand. It needs to be in really nice packaging, in nice boxes, so that people have that perceived value, because it's great chocolate, but sevenhillschocolate.co.uk if anyone's interested. It's great chocolate. But it's not the cheapest out there. You can go to your local supermarket and buy cheaper chocolate. His is a luxury artisan brand. It's delicious, but it needs to be packaged correctly. So he needs the right packaging on there. So there's a huge opportunity there, and not just for that, but either for you or for partners in your network to produce things such as vouchers, where he can say to people, if you order more chocolate within the next 2 weeks, I'll give you 10% off, as long as you make an order of at least £25. Here's the voucher code to use for that. There's opportunities for other print in there as well. I also heard about an Indian takeout restaurant. That was a very high-end one, and they were moving into home deliveries of meals. And again, they needed to bring that perceived value in. So there were cheaper takeaways around who were all doing the old foil carton with the cardboard top to it. They wanted to do something which said, you're having an experience with us. You can't come to our restaurants and have that experience that we'd normally give you, but instead we will come out to you and we'll give you that experience. So part of that is having a beautiful box food comes in, and maybe a one-off printed menu as well. And there's so many other bits. They also, I know this is slightly outside the remit of most people here, they did a local door drop to their to the locality in which they were present, and they also did some great signage as well, which is more for your members. But the result of this is when they reopened, they actually had traffic jams all the way down the street, and they got visited by the police because there's a traffic problem. And naturally the police were interested in how they were managing everything, and they were delighted at the signage that they put in and all the safety measures that the print company had helped them put all this in. So there's great opportunities here in retail, in food deliveries as well. And finally, I think the events market, because events haven't stopped. sadly, we can't have the FESPA face-to-face events that we're used to at the moment, but here we are, a FESPA coffee morning, and at one point this morning, there was over 150 of us sitting around, all enjoying our coffee and biscuits. I'm still waiting for you to send me the cookies, by the way, Graham.
Yeah, sorry.
We're all around enjoying our coffee and biscuits. So here we are at a digital event. And there's a huge time pressure on people now to sign up to lots of digital events, and we all do it, and some of us attend and some of us don't. But imagine that if you're having an important event, do you just get people to sign on into Zoom, or do you give them more that makes them feel really engaged in the event? Imagine a marvelous piece of packaging, a nice box coming through your door with the event t-shirt and maybe the event lanyard and the event brochure. And suddenly you're so much more engaged with that event. You're so much more likely to attend. And it's a good revenue opportunity as well.
It's a particularly good suggestion for online fitness. I think there's great opportunities there because so many people are doing online classes. Yeah, I think, Matthew, I'm going to have to swing back to the fourth question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unfortunately, we could talk for hours, but we're not allowed to. So the fourth question is, how should printing companies change how they approach the sale with new customers?
Okay, so this is, I think, really important, because these new customers aren't coming to print because they need print. They're coming because they have to. They don't understand print. They're not like some of our traditional customers, although more and more customers are like the new customers. And therefore, we have to stop selling print. People aren't interested in the specifications of your machine. They're not interested in how you manufacture things. Let's go back to the restaurant. If I go out to a nice restaurant, I don't mind whether they cook it over a barbecue or on a gas stove or however they do it. I just want a nice meal that I can have at that point. So the same way, people don't mind if you're a latex printer or you're a digital inkjet, as long as you're coming out with the right result for them. And the right result for them isn't a piece of print, it's a business result. We have to move into result selling. So instead of saying to people, I produce signs, it's all about saying, I help make sure you get more customers through your door. The only way your average retailer is going to spend more money on signage is if it changes the perception of their shop and therefore they can charge higher prices, or if it's getting people through the door. And if you come up with solutions for that, people would love to talk to you. If you go, I could do you an A board outside your shop, or I can do you a new sign, then we get into the commodity product driven market where people are going, okay, that sounds interesting. I'm now going to check on the internet and see if I can beat your price down or just go with someone else. But if you go, look, I understand this area, I understand your retail sector, I know the footfalls, I know how to get people in. Now I'm interested in listening to you, and it's not a conversation about price. Yeah. Best of all, if we can have results selling, then we're actually talking about what you've done for other similar businesses. So we're actually stopping to say, instead of saying, I do incredibly great signs, or I do marvelous packaging, or great t-shirts, and I'll give you the best possible quality, and the service is next to none. I'm a buyer, I expect all these things. Yeah. But as a business owner, I'm probably going to go, well, you can do great signs. That's fantastic. I'm not particularly interested.
What's it going to do for me?
Yeah. But tell me that you can get 25% more customers through my door. And then now you've got me listening to you. Now I'm interested in talking to you and understanding what you're doing for me. And it won't be price centered. So we're moving away from print into solution selling. And solution selling used to be thought of as something terribly complicated where someone's going to sell software or multi-touch marketing. But actually, solution selling can be done in the simplest of ways. If I want to help Nick, I'm not selling him packaging and vouchers. I'm selling him repeat custom. When my wife went to online
you're selling the benefits, aren't you? The features are something that come alongside it, but it's highlighting the benefit first.
Yes, I'm a great believer in something called the TPD principle, which is target audience, pain, difference. So who am I serving? Don't be all things to everyone, because then that sales message comes diluted. Yeah, I could sell sales and marketing to lots of sectors, but actually I do very well in print because I'm the print specialist, and I don't need all those other sectors. There's enough people in the printing industry that keep me more than happy. What are the main business challenges that your target market has? So not, can I get my print quicker or better quality, unless it's something very market specific to them. Their business challenges are typically, how can I reduce my cost base? How can I improve sales? That's what they want to be talking about. How do you solve that? And then why should they deal with you rather than somebody else? Know your difference. And then that makes life a lot easier at that point to go and sell to someone. So if we think around that, and if we think about moving away from print, focusing on the results, focusing on the solutions, then I think we're in a much better position to sell successfully to our customers. I don't know what your thoughts on that. Sorry, I've rabbited on a lot.
No, it's good. No, it's good. I'm interested, and I'm enjoying the listening rather than the speaking. So it makes a great deal of sense to me. I think that now we need to maybe take a look at some Q&As, Matthew, because
fantastic.
So I'm going to have a look at some questions that we have here. Okay, so David Zamith is asking, how important is it in your view to give online training programs to improve skills on the customer side?
Well, that's interesting. I think it's very important. I have, just a couple of weeks ago, was actually training a whole marketing team in a company, and they were all relatively, or a lot of them were relatively new to the role, and they were struggling with how to, first of all, how to specify things correctly, but secondly, it was about what were the opportunities for them as well. And they were interested in finding out more. So a lot of them had never done anything with personalization, and yet there were huge opportunities for them there in the marketing side. Yeah, when we're talking to customers about marketing, about signage and what can be done with it, I think it's really important maybe to have mini webinars like this, if you've got enough customers to come on board, to have a Zoom call, show them what you can offer, and make sure that they understand all the opportunities that are out there and what their businesses might be missing as a result of this. What I wouldn't do is teach them all the ins and outs and all the technical sides of how print's produced and all the technical bits of specification, because partly they're not interested in it, and partly once I know all that, it makes it much easier for me to get other suppliers in and make it all about price instead. So I hope that answers that question well. David, do come back with any questions on that, and I'd be delighted to expand more on that.
Great, thanks, Matthew. We've got a couple of questions coming in about sustainability, circular economy. So one of the questions from Debbie McKeegan is, how can the print industry push their company's green credentials to reach out to customers looking for sustainable solutions and stand out in price-sensitive markets?
Right, well, I'm a great believer in green. Right now, I think I'm about to do a podcast on this actually soon. So look out for a UK versus USA with me and Deborah Corn on this. Okay. I'm a great believer that if we want to be green, we need to go down the route of carbon balance, or even try and be carbon negative in what we do. Yeah. So I think those are the key issues. Now, clearly, for many of your members, we've got a lot of issues on the sustainability of the substrates that you're using. So if you're a garment manufacturer and you want to be green, you better be very sure about how you're sourcing the t-shirts and other garments that you're putting out there. If you're a signage manufacturer, not all signage is going to be as environmentally friendly as it might be and survive the weather. So what are we going to do about that? But I'd love to see more really recyclable signage, as opposed to some of the things that are out there. So yeah, is there long-term compostable signage out there? How do we put this over to customers is very much saying, if you're going to be a sustainable business, we're a supplier who can help you with that, and actually make your customers understand the difference between your business and maybe the average business practices in the printing industry, which are not bad, but they're not just as good as yours. You will need to target your customers quite carefully on this. My sad feeling is that there's a lot of customers who pay lip service to being environmentally friendly as opposed to truly believe in it. I hope that's answered that question enough on there.
I think there's I think on the sustainability point, I think, you know, there are some really, really great businesses now who are looking at their sample kits, who are looking to offer leadership, again, moving on from petrochemical based products. You know, in the last coffee break, we were talking with Covame and Epta Inks about bio-sourced materials, about recycled materials. There's a huge amount of development going on supplier side, but I think also on the recycled material, fiber-based materials for signage, people like Swanline Group are doing cardboard fiber-based materials that have got weatherproofing resin. So, you know, there are now some really great solutions. And there's a company that were at our global summit, Image Co, who did a really stunning sample box, you know, a mail out sample box where they provide small sample pieces of reboard, fiber-based rigid display materials, an alternative to plastics, and they really have done a great job. And I completely support your comment about, you know, avoid greenwashing. Be sure of the quality of your offer. Don't just don't overstate your credentials. Do the work, put the hours in, because the changes are here and it will pay off for you, but it takes time to get there. I think we've got room for one more question today, and apologies to any of the attendees who we haven't been able to address their questions directly.
There's a very quick one here, Graham, so it may fit two in, but Zara, the rest of the TPD approach, target market, pain, different. Must have cut, maybe I cut out a bit at that point, but what makes your company different from your competitors?
Okay, thank you.
Right, Graham, over to you for our last question.
Okay, so we've got a question here from Paul Sherfield. How does the print market type or sector affect your approach? Is it different, say, for label printers as opposed to high-end offset printers?
Hi, Paul. Nice to hear from you. I would argue that certainly the strategies and processes that I teach to printing companies are all work in all sectors, but you have to adapt the message and what you're offering according to your market sector. But I would argue that you can use the TPD principle, for instance, and some of the other strategies that I use just as well in labeling, litho, signage. It works in all areas. Yeah. Where I think that your approach has to be different is where you're dealing either with that rare beast, which is a professional print buyer, or people as well. And there you're going to have rather more of a struggle, and you're going to have to think about what you can do to help them, particularly on the procurement side, to maybe help them with the tender document so that you can skew the tender documents to suit your type of company. That I think is the key differentiator rather than the type of print. I hope that's answered your question okay, Paul.
Brilliant. Thank you, Matthew. And I think, you know, sadly, I would like it if these things didn't have to end, but they do. I want to thank you, Matthew, for providing some really interesting answers to today's questions. But sadly, that's nearly all we have time for today. So I'd like to thank our attendees for their participation. And I'd like you to, come and join us for the next session of the coffee break. We'll send out registration links soon and the promo. And if you're interested in watching this webinar again, please feel free to check out our YouTube channel, FESPA TV, where it can be found from tomorrow onwards. And you will have a survey shared with you. We would really value you taking just a few minutes just to complete it and send it back to us. The value of this coffee break session is based around a conversation, and the more feedback that you can give us, the more we can make sure that the conversation is right and appropriate for you. I'd like to say thank you so much for your time, and good luck as you're building back this year. I think we all have some room for a decent slab of optimism as the year starts unfolding, and let's face it, it can't be worse than it was last year. So thank you so much, and thank you, Matthew.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed being here. I could have talked for twice the amount of time, but thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. So thank you, Graham. If anyone had any questions that didn't get answered, do feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just look for Matthew Parker and Print. You'll find me. Drop me a message and I'll happily try and answer any questions that we couldn't get to in the chat today.
And one last thing, I will share the slide again with Matthew's email details and mine, so that if any of you wish to reach out to us, please make a note of our email addresses, or as Matthew says, LinkedIn or other channels that we can be found upon. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.